The only constant in life is change. Heraclitus. Beautiful paradox, isn't it? That the only constant is change. Things are always changing. I mean, the seasons change. That's probably the biggest teacher of change, right? No matter what you do, the seasons are always going to change. From spring to summer, fall, winter, things are always changing, and we kind of have to adapt to it. I mean, unless you live in a place like Hawaii or, something like that where the weather doesn't change. But even if you live in a place where the weather doesn't quite change so often, change is still a constant. Things are always changing, the amount of money you have in your pockets, where you live, the people you're with, your girlfriend, your spouse, if you have kids, if you don't, you lose a job, you get a job, like things are just always changing, and it's funny because if things are always changing, then why is it that we struggle so much with it? And I think we struggle so much with change because we don't have control. Most of the change that happens in our lives, we don't have control over. You don't have control over the weather, right? You could plan a nice picnic, but if you go there and all of a sudden it's raining that day, you don't have control over that. We are all collectively as humanity dealing with a huge collective change, right? Most people in the world, I don't really follow the news too much because I feel like it's kind of toxic, but I'm pretty sure that most people in the world are sheltering in place right now, which means there's this great pause. Everything's changing, and I'm not saying things are changing for the good or changing for the bad. That's kind of up to us on how we want to adapt to that. But we have to be able to adapt to change, right? Charles Darwin, regardless of your stance on Charles Darwin, it doesn't take away with how powerful this quote is, right? And he said something along the lines of, "It isn't the strongest or most intelligent that survives, but the one most adaptable to change. The one that can adapt and adjust to its environment." And so I think we're in this position where we now have to adapt. We have to change. There's a lot of change going on. Some parents are having to homeschool their kids, and kind of keep them busy. And maybe their teachers aren't giving them the right amount of homework, and they're just kind of bouncing off the walls. But at the same time, you have to work from home. Or maybe you're like me, and there's no really work from home because I don't have a job right now. So adjusting to this abundance of time and how to manage my time, and maybe creating a new routine so that I can be on my workouts or my writing routine or whatever it is that I'm doing. But change. I think we need to learn how to embrace change. And I say we because it's always myself included. When I was growing up, my dad's probably the biggest influence in my life. And when I was about 11, 12, 13 is when he first started getting into recovery, and he started to practice a lot of different things. Again, that word practice is important here. And he would always have me practice change. And there'd be times where we'd be coming home and he would turn on the street before, or he'd pass the street that we lived on and he'd turn on the street after. And I would say things like, "Hey Dad, you missed a turn," or "You turned too early." And his response was always something along the lines of, "It's a good opportunity to practice change, to keep things fresh." And I think that we need to practice change more often, because the more you practice it, the better you get. Practice makes the master, right? So if we get used to practicing change on a more regular basis, then when things change, it's easier for us to adapt and not be so set in our ways. I recently just reread a book a couple days ago called Who Moved My Cheese? Actually, my wife recommended it. She actually said she wanted to read it. And I kind of beat her to the punch because she's still kind of working. So I was able to read that book. It takes less than an hour. It's a really short book, Who Moved My Cheese? I believe it's by Dr. Spencer Fisher. Don't quote me on that. But it's a really incredible book on change and how we deal with change. And there's a couple characters in there. There's 4 actually. 2 mice and 2 little people who are kind of like the size of mice. And they're looking for cheese in this maze. And then all of a sudden the cheese is gone and it's somewhere else. And each of these characters adapt differently, respond differently to the cheese no longer being there. The mice go and they just adjust right away. They don't complain about it. They just they show up, the cheese isn't there anymore. They pack up their running shoes and they just get right back to it and they go searching for cheese. Whereas the little people, pardon that plane, I don't know if you can hear that plane, but there's a plane flying over there. Shout out to all the people who are working still, the essential workers, people that are at the airport or having to fly and, transport essential workers and things like that. I'm staying home, I'm sheltering in place, but there's other people who don't necessarily have that choice. So thank you. Side tangent real quick. Thank you for those of you who are essential workers, whether you're driving around, whether you're dropping off Amazon packages for all you crazies who are continually ordering stuff, or whatever it is, you're working at the grocery store, things like that. Thank you. Thank you for your service to us. We will do our best. At least I will do my best. I can't control everybody else. All I can control is myself. I'll do my best to shelter in place. Obviously, I'm not at home right now. I'm at a park, but I'm pretty much the only one here, minus the trees and birds and things like that. Anyways, I've digressed too far here. But to go back to who moved my cheese, you know, we have the little people that are humans that can think like us, that become entitled, that, you know, oh man, like someone should put that cheese back. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying here until that someone puts that cheese back. And, you know, and then we stay stuck in this space because we're hoping that the thing, fill in the blank of that cheese of whatever it is, we're searching for this thing that's no longer there. And we're banging our heads against the wall hoping that it will return, when really all we have to do is follow what the mice did and put our running shoes back on and go back out into that maze and find a new set of cheese. You know, right now is a good opportunity to practice that. You know, the thing that you were looking for may not be in that same location anymore. And that could be anything. It could be a job, it could be a relationship. Maybe you're in a relationship and you feel like you don't feel that same love, you don't feel that same connection, and you're just hoping that it's going to return to that. You're hoping that it's going to return to that, but you didn't realize that that cheese has gotten moldy, or that cheese is gone, you know, and it's time to move on. I think we struggle with letting go. I know that was a big thing for me pretty much up until this point. Not that I'm a master at it, but I feel like I'm pretty good at letting go and pretty good at practicing change. But I think it is something that we do need to practice. We do need to practice letting go. We do need to practice change because, you know, like I said in the beginning, the only constant in life is change, and change will continue to occur. So right now we're in this big change. There's a whole shakeup of what's going on. There's another plane above head. I don't know if you guys can hear me clearly, or if that plane is even catching, but we're all going through a big change right now. It's the great pause, like nobody's doing anything, and it's a good opportunity to practice change. You know, try to eat different food, listen to different music, pick up a different hobby that you didn't otherwise do. Maybe start watercoloring, pick up a guitar, start strumming. You want to learn martial arts? Start watching videos online. Side tangent, I may be posting a lot of videos about martial arts shortly, so if you're interested, stay tuned. But change, 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 change. Wayne Dyer, one of my favorite authors, one of my dad's favorite authors, said that when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. Practice change. Dive into it. Embrace it. The only way you're going to get better at change is to practice it. Hope y'all staying safe out there. I love y'all. Until next time. Peace.